Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us for this evening's program on behavioral health literacy. I'm Adrienne. I'm with the library, and it's my pleasure to introduce Shabnam Curtis, Integral Life Coach and the leader of our workshop this evening.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Thanks for being here. Tonight is a little bit strange. We were just talking about it. We usually by now have more people joining us. But I'm glad you did, and I appreciate it. Thank you. So I'm going to share my screen. Yeah, this one. All right. Yep, as Adrienne mentioned, I'm a certified life coach. I do integral coaching, and this is part of my educational services that I like to have these mental health series to kind of like provide what actually self-growth is about and about actually life coaching is and how life coaching can help. Or if you want to do it on your own, this is kind of like a basic foundation for your own growth. And tonight we are going to talk about behavioral health literacy. So how is our behavior structured? How do we do what we do, and how can we manage what we do? I hope that you enjoy it. And I do ask questions. There is no pressure, but I would love it if you can participate and talk about your experience. It is being recorded, so if there is anything confidential, you probably don't want to express it. But other than that, if there's anything that you would like to share, any experience, any thoughts, it's great. We would love to hear it. So what we are going overall to talk about tonight is, I always like to start with what is self-growth, and we actually had like another workshop on it in January, but kind of like a brief thing that to kind of like gauge to see what everyone thinks about self-growth. Honestly, until like a couple of years ago or a few years ago, I didn't know. I had read a lot of different things from here and there, but I didn't know what I want from myself, or what is the path that I'm going. I was just like creating the path as I was going, but I didn't have a big vision for myself. And then I would like to bring this, it might be new to you, or you might have heard of this polyvagal theory that talks about our vagal nerve, and it's part of our nerve system, and how biological can our behavior be, and how we can actually biologically manage it too. And then how, when we learn about the polyvagal theory, I'd like to kind of like offer, based on the creator of polyvagal theory and also other psychologists who are working on it scientifically, they offer practices that can help us to ground ourselves, to connect ourselves, and use the knowledge of this theory to kind of like manage and regulate our emotions and our behavior. So what is self-growth? I'd like if someone wants to chime in and tell us about what you think self-growth is before I go through the website, the slide. Yes, please. Sure, no problem.
Oh, there we go. Sorry.
Thank you.
My name is Beverly, and I'm coming to you from and I'm actually not in my PJs. It's just that it's so cold that I put a robe on. So for me, self-growth has taken on a different meaning. I retired 4 years ago, before the pandemic. So the last 4 years have been about sort of making peace with my role not as an employee. So I've done a lot of things, and also some medical conditions. So a lot of the self-growth has been psychological, has been a result of implementing certain behaviors, for example, meditation, yoga practice, journaling, gratitude practice. So those two things, I looked at what I was like prior to my medical diagnosis and when I was working, and some of those behaviors and routines no longer served me. So I went on a journey to change them. So, and this really struck a chord with me. So that's
wow. That is great. Thank you. Thanks for sharing that. Yes, exactly. I mean, you mentioned so many different points that all come together and makes that that growth for us, basically to connect to life in a deeper way. Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Of course. It was getting a little disconnected. Where are you located?
I'm in Los Angeles, California.
Oh, okay.
So I actually take a lot of classes through the Fairfax, Virginia branch. I take the fitness classes and a few other things. And this really caught my eye late last night, and I signed up for it. So
thank you.
But yeah, I got disconnected earlier. I had a hard time connecting.
No problem. Thank you so much. Anybody else likes to talk about it? All right. So let me share with what I came up with. What I have here is a quotation from Lisa Barrett, Dr. Lisa Barrett. She has a research study on emotions, and how our emotions are made and how our emotions are based on our perception. It's that's why that we cannot even understand or guess someone else's emotion, because it's very different for each of us. Something that is scary to me is not scary to you. So it's based on our perception, and she says it here beautifully. Okay, this is better. Sorry, the Zoom thing was covering the words. So she says, your own perceptions are not like a photograph of the world. They are not even a painting of photographic quality like a Vermeer, the painter. They are more like a Van Gogh or Monet. So this is actually not Van Gogh or Monet, but this is an expressionism that you see that, like there is not a lot of details and a lot of clarity in it. And that's how we see the world. And it's wrong if we think that we are seeing the world with clarity, because there are always our own perception that comes on the way and gives us a lens to see the reality through it. So the reality, saying that the reality is based on our perception and accepting that, basically is like, okay, how else or in what other ways I can bring clarity to my reality? And that's by accepting to hear from others. That's by being curious about what else is in this. That's by not accepting things in the face value, not being judgmental and being more curious about it. That means that we have to have the self-awareness. So but with self-awareness, we accept that we need to have more information or perspective in order to be able to judge something, but not being judgmental, or to be understanding of other people as well as ourselves, to be compassionate and self-compassion. Or even like Beverly mentioned, that our habits, our old patterns that we have, if we are curious, if we accept that we have those old patterns that they no longer serve us, then we can start changing them and replacing them by newer patterns, newer beliefs, newer mindset. And that makes us to be more kind of like resilient in a way that we can take more of the world with being less shaken. Of course, there are stressful events, there are triggers every day, every second in this world. But the more we know ourselves and the more we accept our own imperfection, then we have the ability to accept other people's imperfection and then have a wise response to it, to empower ourselves and empower others. So that's basically what I think self-growth is. And as a result of that, that's when I personally feel more connected to life. I feel like there is more to life that I can go dig for and grab and have it. Any comments? Any thoughts on this? All right. So how do we want to do it? Like I said, it's about our biology, it's about our nerve system, and about the triggers. The triggers in everyday life, they can be small or big, depends on our perception. Something that doesn't trigger me as much may trigger you very deeply and strongly, and it's all based on our different experiences. But that trigger is basically giving us a message, giving our body a message that you are not safe anymore and you have to be alarmed, which is a survival mode, which is a survival instinct to take us to survival mode. So our body gets the message and decodes the message through our nerve system that, oh, I'm not connected anymore, I'm not safe anymore, I'm in danger, starts looking for danger. And then we talk about it like we could go to fight, flight, or freeze, but it's basically all biology. So that's why we can, when we learn about it, we can actually manage it too. And that when our nerve system is alarmed, then there are different hormones released, that like it sends the message to the brain starts releasing different hormones, especially like it's always a mix of hormones, but when we are alarmed, when our nerve system is alarmed, there is a lot of cortisol released in the body. But the body goes to kind of like the defense mode, and these are all very below our awareness. It's not in basically like we don't feel it. It happens in a fraction of a second, and sometimes it even happens without in our subconscious. So it's very important to learn and to understand what happens to us in order to bring the self-regulation, in order to bring the regulation back to our body. Basically, the self-regulation is when we develop a capacity. It's kind of like, when we go to the gym and we build up our body, it doesn't happen overnight and we have to continually doing it. When we stop doing it, we don't get it anymore. All the muscles go away. So we have to continually practice in a daily manner that we develop the capacity to be more resilient. So stressors don't shake us, then don't leave us in that shaken situation. Stressors come and shake us, but we have the ability, we have the awareness to come back and instead of impulsively react, to basically like take our time and have a wise response. So what part of our body is actually responsible for our behavior. Like we talked about nerve system. The nerve system is a very complicated system in our body. It's just absolutely amazing and very difficult to understand. But based on the understanding that science so far has, it's basically the autonomic nerve system that structures our behavior or causes our behavior. And isn't that interesting? Because if you're familiar, autonomic nerve system is basically the system that is below our conscious awareness, like the heartbeat, like breathing, like the digestion. That also controls our behavior. So that's why I want to particularly emphasize on the biology of it. You know, like people come and say, but when this person attacked me, I was a coward and I didn't respond or I didn't defend myself. But that's not true, because biologically, that person at that moment, her or his nerve system, just based on the previous experiences, decided to go to freeze and not being able to be mobilized about it. That's, you know, at that moment, it's the pressure is so much that you can't do anything. And after the fact, when it's a traumatized, a huge pressure or a stressor, after the fact, you feel like, why didn't I move? Why didn't I escape? Why didn't I defend? But because at that moment, your nerve system decided based on your experience that, like, I'm not going to do anything. So it's really not a lot of it is not cognitive. When we are connected, then it becomes cognitive. But when we are not connected, we basically use the mammalian and the stem part of the brain that we call it like the lizard brain. It's very reactive. But what we want to do, and what polyvagal theory is going to help us to learn, is how can we make and keep the connection between the lower part of the brain and the prefrontal cortex. The prefrontal cortex is the part that helps us to regulate ourselves, to decide, to plan, all the cognitive abilities here. And when these are connected, or good connection, there is a good connection between them, that's when we can actually have wise and mature responses. This is a definition of the polyvagal theory. Deb Dana is a clinician who was actually who has been bringing and teaching polyvagal theory to the mainstream, to all different therapists and coaches like me. But polyvagal theory was, and basically is a research study of Stephen Porges. It's a 20 years study now. It's coming out. It's been coming out for past couple of years, and kind of like it's been popularized. So Deb Dana defines it like this. She says the ability to respond to and recover from the challenges of daily living is a marker of well-being and depends on the actions of the autonomic nerve system. You say it's biology, right? With the development of polyvagal theory, Stephen Porges has provided a modern map of the territory of the autonomic nerve system and a new understanding of the ways it shapes moment-to-moment experiences of connection and protection. So listen to this part, the modern map of the territory. And why does she say that? Because the autonomic nerve system is a huge system, is a complex system, and does so many different things. What Stephen Porges has done is just bringing a map that shows us or focuses only on our behavioral structure. It's kind of like as if you have a map that shows that has the territory of, eastern part of US, but it only focuses on let's say like the museums. So this is what he's done. This is like a new thing that he's like, okay, let's focus on how our autonomic nerve system, basically the vagus nerve in it, is behaving and is controlling and managing and causing our behavior. This is basically the map. It doesn't look like the Google Maps, but it has the pillars of this theory. One pillar of the theory is the autonomic hierarchy. One of them is the neuroception, and the other one is the co-regulation. So these are the three pillars that he's been focusing on. Now, what are they? We go to details in next slides, but in summary, the autonomic hierarchy is we are connected, so we are in ventral mode, and then we get a stressor and we are shaken a little bit, and we go to the sympathetic mode that is fight or flight. And then if we stay in that mode and we don't have any way to connect back to the connection, usually the body goes to the freeze. That is basically like depression or feeling helpless or like that. But at the same time, I intentionally add that because it's not necessarily a bad state, because the rest and digest is also there too. Oh, I'm sorry. No, I said it wrong. The rest and digest is in the ventral system, but when it goes to the freeze, it actually shuts down. Sorry about that. The neuroception is a system that, like how we would always say, like or this person has a sixth sense. It's basically the system that receives and gives messages with the environment and other bodies in the environment, so other people in the environment. Like I mentioned, is below our conscious awareness, but there are ways to learn to kind of like be able to have the capability of listening to the messages, because it's all through our body, and we will talk about that. And the co-regulation, we are born to connect. All mammals especially are born to connect, and we are one of those. Connection, and a safe connection, is a survival instinct, and we all need that. And if it's taken away from anybody, if it's like infant, they actually die. If it's adult, they go insane. One of the major punishments, especially for political prisoners, is taking them away from other prisoners. I forgot the exact term, but that's basically taking away the connection with other people, which is really survival for all mammals, including us, in a very different way for human, because we also have the prefrontal cortex that helps us to connect through not only just the body gestures, but also through words. Any thoughts, any questions so far? All right. Oh, no, that's not what I meant. Sorry. Okay. So this is basically like a little bit more like a map, but a hierarchy, for just the hierarchy part of vagal system. We talked about it, but there is a little bit of more information here. So does anybody have any question? Okay. So it's basically when we are connected, we feel settled, we feel calm, we can be very compassionate towards others, we can be very mindful about where we are, how we are doing, we can have the curiosity. But then let's say that the stressor, so it's the nerve system arousal, you see that it starts arousing. This is kind of like very relaxed here, but then the stressor comes in and then the nerve system starts to arouse. The mobilization is here when we go to the sympathetic system state of being, And that's what we call it fight or flight. We feel frustration, anger, depends on the situation, depends on the strength of the situation or the trigger or the stressor. We can feel fear. We can feel anxiety. Usually anxiety is part of it. It doesn't matter if you feel fear or if we feel angry or frustrated. Usually anxiety is kind of like, oh, I'm here also. It's like, I'm the good friend. I want to be with you, even if we don't want it. And then we stay there. We can kind of like go back to ventral system with some practices that we will talk about, especially like some self-soothing practices. But sometimes it's, let's say, like you are in a relationship that the stress is constant, or abuser that, at work, or in a constant stress at work, or people in the war, when the stress goes on and on and on for a long time, then we become really numb. We feel helpless. Sorry, my dogs decided to be very needy tonight. And then it takes us to feeling like even depressed, or not completely like a lizard, but immobilized in our human version. However, when I'm in that situation, I really need to lay down and I don't want to talk to anybody. I don't want to move. I feel absolutely exhausted. So I really go to that freeze lizard mode. But of course, it depends on the person. But depression is definitely a state that when we are in the freeze mode, when we are in depression, we go to that freeze mode. We usually don't feel angry when we are depressed. But in order to come back to connection, you have to go through sympathetic and then ventral vagal. What does that mean? So depression, let's say like I feel depressed, not clinically, but maybe situationally, or I feel hopeless. As long as I stay in that state of being with those emotions, I cannot jump to connection. I need to come back and feel the frustration or anger in my own way. It might be like a very little thing. It might be a huge anger coming out, but then we will learn how to manage it. And then we can go to the connection. So that's the hierarchy. That's what Stephen Porges means with the hierarchy, that you go from ventral to sympathetic to dorsal. And then in order to come back, you have to step back exactly the same path. Now, a little exercise, if anybody likes to share, what was the moment that, like today or yesterday, you felt connected to life, you felt connected to a person? Anybody likes to share any about this experience?
I'd like to share.
Sure, please.
I have a question, though. I was taking notes furiously as you were talking, and then it occurred to me, this is being recorded, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay, so I don't take notes. That's good. And then I had a quick question about the previous slide.
Yes.
I've heard what you've said, but I like the way you're presenting it. Thank you very much. So what I've seen when I've seen this chart, I've seen the dorsal vagal, sympathetic, parasympathetic, and then ventral vagal. And yes. I've been told that to get from if we're going down, to get to the sympathetic, to go from sympathetic to ventral vagal, we need to do parasympathetic behaviors that will get us there. I'm guessing you're going to talk about that in a moment.
We will talk about self-soothing, yes, and okay. That's just a different language, but basically ventral vagal is the parasympathetic. Okay. And in order to get that, like you just mentioned, we have to do practices, parasympathetic practices, which I call self-soothing practices, in order to get to that connection. Exactly.
Yeah. I did want to share something.
Yes, please.
I had shared earlier that I retired, took early retirement, and I was in a kind of a stressful job, like many of us, for different reasons. But I was diagnosed with a medical condition, a pretty severe one, and I was told, this is what we can do for you medically. This is what has happened to your brain, and it happened a long time ago, so we can only do so much. But then they said, but there are all these things you can try, and they said, you have to do this. If you want to feel better. And so they rattled off my neurologist and GP. They said, you can try meditation, you can try yoga, you can try qigong, you can try gratitude practice, you can try journaling. And I thought, wow, I'll do this. And I've been doing all of those things, varying degrees, for the last few years. And one of the things that I have noticed is that I am a lot less reactive. I really respond to situations, and I notice it in very tiny ways. Like when I have problems with the computer, early on when we started, everybody was sort of new to a lot of these computer things. And I would get really flustered and really angry at myself. Mostly it was myself. And, now I stay much calmer, and I'm aware of my body in a way that I was not before. Early on, they would say, be aware, sense your body. I remember thinking, what the hell is that? Oh, sorry. What the heck is that? Because I didn't know. And I started to realize that whenever I would get tense, whether I was wearing shoes or not, my toes would curl under. They would curl under. And also my shoulders would go up. Yes. And I started to notice these things. So this has been a luxury in the sense that I am retired. I have internet connection, and I'm able, to read about all these things and take all these different classes literally across the country. Yes. But it's helped me a lot, and it's been a lot of work, but it's also been very illuminating. So thank you. Thank you so much for this.
Wow, thanks for sharing. It definitely makes me happy when, I hear that like you've been doing this hardworking, a lot of practices, and it's paid off, and you see the results.
It's a process. It continues.
It's
not one and done.
Process. Yes, of course. But that's amazing. Thank you for sharing that. So is that basically what you are saying is by doing these rituals in a regular way, you feel more connected to life?
I feel more connected to life. I feel more connected to people. I had alienated a lot of people. I was not an angry, bombastic person, but I was very tightly wound, and I had a tendency to be, not to label everything, but type A kind of person. Things had to be very rigid, and I'd get so I feel a lot more connected. I'm more open to other people. So just this morning, I took a new class through this library, a qigong class that I found really soothing. And then it's been raining a lot in Los Angeles, and my partner said, I'll make your lunch and I'll bring it upstairs, because this is where I do my video stuff. He said, I'll bring it upstairs, and that way you can eat before your class. Now, I probably would not have asked him. I would have gone downstairs, and I had thought, okay, there's only so much you can do because you have a short window. But the fact that I was so calm about it and mentioned, he offered, and our communication's much stronger. Our relationship's much better than it was at the beginning.
This is amazing. And sharing it's just like brings more proof how all these practices on self-development helps and how they actually work. Thank you.
Thank you.
It is definitely hard work, but it's really worth it.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. So
thank you. I love these kinds of classes.
Thank you. And then a little about like, if anybody likes to share anything about like, if you felt a little anger or anxiety sometimes today or yesterday. And I'm more curious to see like if you felt it in your body. Beverly just mentioned it very beautifully, that like how her shoulders go up, or, you know, when there is a special stressor, or her toes curls up. But how do you feel it? If anyone likes to share, or you can think about it yourself. But when was it that you felt anxiety or anger usually come together? And how did you sense it in your body? Do you remember? Just a little contemplation on it, you know. And the more we practice, the more we learn about our body and our patterns in our body. You know, like the way that I sit next to my daughter is very different than the way that I sit next to my mother, and it's a subconscious pattern. I noticed it was subconscious, it's now a little more conscious, but it's kind of like my body as a mother uses a different position compared to my body as a daughter. It's just like, I was amazed to learn that about myself. I'm like, oh wow, I sit differently, even though it looks like the same, you know, but I definitely use or contract different muscles based on the person next to me. Anything in the environment that can impact us. And then our body, like we talked about, based on our experience, decides what to do. And that's exactly the neuroception, that it's a terminology that Stephen Porges introduced, that is basically all those bodily messages. So when our body receives a message from the environment, different muscles and different places of our body react differently. And there are so many small muscles in our body that we don't even feel it, especially if we are not familiar somatically with our own body. Like if you put your hand just on your temple and look up and then look down, you'll see that there is a little muscle here that moves. But if you don't put your hand there or your finger there, you don't know that it's moving. There are many, many more muscles like that in our body that they can contract when we receive some messages. One thing I can give you a few examples based on the research studies, and like I've read it in other books. You know, like let's say like you are, or I'm not, but I'm scared of cats for whatever reason. Like a cat bit me when I was little, and then I am still holding on to that phobia that all cats are bad because of that. I never processed it, so it's still with me. That's what my brain and my nerve system knows. Cats are dangerous. I step into your house, I don't even see your cat. I don't even notice I'm smelling a cat. But subconsciously, my brain knows that there is a smell of a cat. So there is a cat. And then subconsciously, some of my muscles start contracting. Or there was this other example that it's a book that I highly recommend by Oprah Winfrey and Dr. Bruce Perry. It's titled What Happened to You? And the way that they say it, it's what if we use this sentence, what happened to you, instead of what's wrong with you? Because something happened to us. There is nothing wrong with us. And that's how our body reacts. But there is this boy, as one of the examples that they talk about, there is this young boy who had an abusive alcoholic father who beat him, and then he goes to a foster home, and the foster father, I think, was very manipulative. So in a very different way, he was abused in two different ways by two different men as in father roles, right? So in one of the events with his stepfather, he goes to coma because I think he falls from steps or whatever. This Dr. Bruce Perry, who was a psychiatrist at the time working with him, he takes one unwashed shirt of his father while this young boy is in coma and let him smell. So the brain smells the father and remembers all the beating and all the abuse in that way. The heart rate goes up. So he feels the fight or flight, even though he's in coma. The nerve system arouses. And then another time he brings an unwashed shirt of the stepfather. The heartbeat goes low and he goes to freeze, because that's how he reacted to these different people, and that's how his body learned to react, even if you're not conscious. That's how our nerve system works. And these are based on scientific research studies. I'm not saying science is complete. Science has a long way to go. But this is how our body learns. And this means what my perception is. So it's very important to be aware of our perception and then of our bodily sensations. Mm-hmm. If I go to an environment, to a new environment, if I feel welcomed or unwelcomed, if I feel tensions in some parts of my body, the more you pay attention, was it like my chest? You usually can get a very good gauge based on your breathing. The more you pay attention to your breathing, the breathing becomes shallow when there is a trigger. There is a lot in, like in your shoulder, usually between the shoulders. Mine is especially on my right shoulder. I never learned left and right. I can now even feel it. The stressor comes and the pain starts here. And then I have to do my self-soothing practices to kind of like calm my body down. And as long as we don't calm our body down, we cannot get through cognitive solutions. When we can get to cognitive solutions that our body is calmed down. So it's very important to kind of like understand our bodily sensations. Mm-hmm. Now, you are probably wondering what this picture is. It's also, again, about the perception. Mm-hmm. A lot of people see this picture and they feel like, oh, he's just very serious. I see this picture and people like me, I feel scared of this picture. I feel like he's threatening me. And that's my perception, which could be very different than your perception. So if a teacher had a stern look like this at school, I would immediately go to the mood of like, I did something wrong. And I usually, because of my upbringing, because I'm scared of anger, I usually pass quickly through the angers or the mobilization or fight or flight, and I immediately go to freeze. Now, freeze or appease. If I'm in a place that I can't just freeze, or I don't have, or especially when I was younger or when I was a child, I would become an amazing people pleaser to survive, just to try to kind of like make the environment safe for me. Like, oh, if this teacher likes me, so I can, that I can survive. That was the reaction. And we still do it, and I still do it. Like you mentioned, Beverly, it's like a continual process. It's amazing how these old patterns are so internalized in us. No matter how much I say that women's right, I still do things that are against women's right because it's so internalized in me. And then it's good to know our own hidden biases, our bodily sensations, and then contemplate on it. And we will have actually a workshop on somatic and embodiment intelligence to kind of like see how we can change these patterns in a very structured way. I know I can get very passionate about one slide or another. So now another little self-awareness practice. It's kind of like, can you imagine? You can definitely do it later. If you like to share it now, we would be happy to hear. But can you imagine, like today, yesterday, or just recently, that you walked in somewhere and you felt welcomed or not welcomed? And where in your body do you remember where in your body you sensed it?
Since there are only 6 of us, if I may share,
Please.
I noticed today, I tried to charge something last night. I was joining something, and it was blocked. This morning, I got a message. It came like at 6 a.m. or whatever. It said that the credit card charge was not accepted, was declined. And my stomach started to turn. And I know this card has a lot of, it has a lot of, available credit. So I knew I had to call the credit card company, but already I could feel I was kind of sick to my stomach. And then I thought, well, I don't have a lot of windows, so I have to make sure that I call them when I have enough time. So what I did was, the first thing I did was I did a breathing exercise. I did 10 breaths and took my time. Then I did some grounding exercises, counting things, the number of things I saw, the number of things I touched, smelled. And then I wrote a worry tree, the worst thing that this credit company was going to tell me. And then I thought, okay, then I need some tools. I need to have my credit card handy. I need to have this. And I called them, and it was just an alert. They were being, careful. I didn't usually buy from this merchant. And, it was kind of it was an odd thing. They keep track of everything you buy. And I was able to stay pretty calm, and at one point I asked the agent, I said to the agent, oh, I need to go to the restroom. Can you hold on for a moment? I didn't have to go to the restroom. I put the phone down because I still have a home phone. I put the phone down and I took a couple of deep breaths and then picked up the phone again. Wow. This is completely new behavior. This is not me at all. I mean, it is me now. But
this is you.
It's taken 3 years now. I would have been, I would have thought, oh my gosh, what's happening? I wouldn't have even noticed that my stomach was in knots, or right, that breathing would have helped. So I really believe in these things. I think, there's a lot of power in this, and a lot of how we are learned, modeled behaviors. It isn't all nurture nature kind of thing. I mean, it's not just all nature. A lot of it is how we have been conditioned. So thank you again. And thank you for letting me share.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for sharing. Exactly. Yeah. Like, how many times we had that stomach churn or butterfly and we just dismissed it. One of the clients was sharing that, like, she was trying to go to a funeral, and then after she started learning about these bodily sensations and messages, she figured out that she's not ready, and she wasn't, like, this would put her, because of other situations, this would put her in a very stressful situation, and she decided not to go because of the way that she felt her body was messaging her. It was kind of like a lot of tensions, a lot of pain in her shoulder. So it's really like we've been, probably after the whole, after the Industrial Revolution, and the culture for past couple of centuries have been telling us that it's just your brain, it's just your cognitive ability, but it's really not. This is a great, amazing system that we have. But we can't just live up here. We need to learn about our body in order to be able to really function and connect to life, to be able to understand other people, to be able to feel, to sense. These are really important things that exactly, we have to unlearn the old patterns and learn these new patterns that, oh, I can actually, with a couple of deep breaths, I can bring some connection back. And the more we practice, the more we know how we actually, what we need at each situation. 7:27. I need to be careful about time. I can talk so much or a lot of time too much. Another pillar of this polyvagal theory is the co-regulation. Like we mentioned, we talked about how connection is important for us, for mammals, and for human especially. And it's kind of like, just imagine one day that goes by and you didn't feel connected to anybody. That usually brings a low mood for us. Now, that's another thing that we might not pay attention, but if you pay attention for next few days, you will see that that if you don't feel that real connection with some people, then that definitely impacts your mood. Like tonight, I feel this connection. I'm good for a few days probably. This gives me a lot of energy. But if there is a day that I'm constantly working on my computer, I don't talk to my loved ones, or I don't talk to anybody who, sometimes you talk to coworkers, but it's really not a connected way. That doesn't count. We need to feel that real connection with other people, really day by day, to feel good. That's why loved ones, family members, they can be a pain in the butt, but they also are loved ones. And in a way that we see them, we help them, they help us. It brings meaningful connection to us. Now we learn co-regulation basically from the moment that we are born from our caregivers. Sadly, there are a lot of caregivers that they don't know co-regulation because their caregivers didn't know, so they didn't know about it, they weren't taught, and they can't do it. Or in the case of, like my generation, it was like if the baby cries, you just leave the baby, you don't spoil the baby. Even if the baby is hungry, you don't touch the baby until like 3 hours or 2 hours or whatever, that scheduled thing. It's like, even sometimes, sadly, the psychology or the science of the time taught wrong things. Or caregivers who have a lot of traumas that are unprocessed. They're wrapped up in their own pain. They can't be the co-regulator of another being, especially a baby with the needs of the demanding needs of a baby. So if we learn that from our caregivers, beautiful. Now the new generation, I see like it's a lot more, they are like new parents are a lot more attentive to their children, and the psychology is kind of like opening up to the psychology of parenting and raising kids. It's just like really blooming at this point of the history, and I'm sure this is still not enough, and it will go on and on. But if we don't learn co-regulation from our caregivers, then when we are adults, that's why we are here, because we want to learn co-regulation between us and other people to make those meaningful connections, and eventually that co-regulation allows us to have self-regulation. So we are connect. If we don't get the connection, it's really hard to do the self-regulation. We have to be with other people. It's very important to understand that which one is the real connection, because sometimes we are among a lot of people, but we really feel lonely. But sometimes it's kind of like we are with this one person and we feel that real support, real connection, real authenticity in the relationship. I know I can count on this person, or I know this person can count on me. So it's so important to have those in our lives, to kind of like review our relationships and to see where is it that I can actually bring that connection back to life. And of course, it's a combination of working on my self-growth, and bringing more compassion to other people. And of course, there are times that I need me time, you need me time, and kind of like that solitude that helps us to reflect and rejuvenate, to come back and be with other people. The connection is definitely a survival thing, but it's probably hard for anybody. Now, some people are more extroverted and they can get more energy with the connection with people. Some people are more introverted, and like me, I need like the connection and then I need me time. And we also change this whole extroverted, introverted is a spectrum. We have all of it, but it also changes over time through different situations and circumstances in our life. So just another example to reflect, and another little practice to reflect. When do you feel lonely? Do you have those connections in your life? Where can you create more, like a deeper, stronger connection? And where is the time that you feel to want to be to yourself, to have a solitude, and your own time with yourself? Just like a little bit reflection. And there are more kind of like little practices at the end of the slides. And Adrienne always kindly shares the slides, so please feel free to go through them as kind of like a little practice slide, practice deck for yourself. Well, now that we know all of these, what do we want to do with it? We understand, well, we have a little understanding, kind of like a scratch the surface of polyvagal theory. We know the biology and how biology works in our body, and how it can change our behavior. It can throw us to fight or flight or freeze, and how what do we need to do to come back to the connection. Basically, there are 3 different pathways to that connection, to safety. There are 3 different ways of grounding ourselves that I am really grateful that Beverly actually mentioned many of them. Embodiment. Breathing is a very important one. There are so many different breathing methods. Like the box breathing, they call it box breathing. It's like 4 inhale, 4 hold, 4 exhale, 4 hold. And you can do it for like 3 or 4 rounds and then go back to your normal rhythm of the breathing. But pay attention to your breathing. Is it shallow? Is it deep? Can I just sit and relax and have a couple of deep breaths to just kind of like calm down? And the philosophy behind, or the science behind it, is when you pay attention to your breathing, you allow more, especially when you have full breathing, you allow more oxygen to your lungs and to your blood and to your heart, so everything calms down. Your sympathetic system, it's actually a parasympathetic behavior to calm your sympathetic system. This is how we kind of like interfere that autonomic being of, like the whole breathing that is not conscious. But when breathing is one of those acts that if we do it consciously, we can actually help our nerve system to calm down. Sighing is actually very important. Yawning too, I don't have it here, but sighing and yawning, they're both very important to calm ourselves down. You see, like if you have a pet, when they feel nervous, they start yawning, and that's their reflex, the reaction of their body to calm them down. We do the same thing, we human beings. Sighing with another person who you are connected to, it's very helpful. That brings the co-regulation. And I just have like different types of sighing here, because it can be, like a sighing of relief, or it can be like a little despair. There are different types of sighing. There are different types of breathing, and the touch. Even remembering a warm and a friendly touch can calm your system down. But it's better if you can even have someone to hug, or if no one is around, you can hug yourself, you can touch yourself. Especially there is like a little body scan. In the next slide, there is like a little graph that you can use. If you do a body scan, see where is the contraction, where is the triggered parts of your body. And, you know, like I am now used to just touch and kind of like give a little massage to my neck, because this is the part hurts a lot. Or if I feel a little congestion in my heart, I just like to put my, like the warmth of my hand on my heart. If there is like my stomach churning or my gut, I like to put my hand on my tummy. It helps a lot. At the same time, this part of your neck, it's like the back part of your neck is the hub of between the nerve system, especially the vagal nerve comes here and connects to the main part of the brain, the stem of the brain. This is the part that if you put the warmth of your hand on, or even if you give yourself a little massage, you can do it now if you like to practice. It kind of like brings a little bit of pleasure and calmness in your body. Just pay attention to it. If you don't feel it now, just keep doing it, and you'll sense it after a while. Now, this is a little body scan figure. It's from inbright.org from Amanda Blake. She's an amazing somatic coach, and I've learned, she's actually one of my teachers. I've learned so much from her. And this is for free in her website, so you can even download it from her website with this link. You just go through different parts of your body. Is it triggered or is it centered? And like I mentioned, if it's triggered, just try to kind of like touch it or relax it. Like around our eyes, there are so many muscles that you can, if you pay attention, you can relax it. This will help a lot in kind of like grounding yourself before you reacting to a trigger. And depends on how much time you have. I love that example that, you know, I just go to the bathroom, and then it's just like two full breathing, and it really helps. But the more you practice, the more you bring a ritual to your daily practices, it helps you. It builds more strength and more resilience. So the shake comes, but you do have a tool to constantly grab, use, and ground yourself. Sometimes you have a few minutes, sometimes you have a few seconds. For a few seconds, breathing is good. Also, one thing I really highly recommend is shaking. Just shake. And it kind of like brings a different energy into your body. It works for me, and I've heard it works for some other people. None of these works for everybody, so you can just find your own. So embodied is one way, and the environment. You know, we talked about how neuroception brings a lot of messages from our environment to our body and to our nerve system. So when we are triggered, when our nerve system is aroused, is there an object that you can touch? I have actually like this. I don't know if you can see it, and I constantly just turn it, and I like to watch it. It's just like one of those things for me. You know, a lot of us have pictures of our loved ones around us that we can watch. There's like this little, I have like in a wall behind me, I have little rocks that I have brought from different parts of the world. And sometimes it's just like touching it, it takes me to a different world and calms me down that the world is bigger. That's what it reminds me. Smell is very important. There are so many. Smell is like one of those things that can bring bad memories and good memories. So if you have a particular smell, like if it's lavender, or if it's your favorite fragrance, or something that reminds you of a person that you loved, you know, like, oh, this was something my mother or, or someone that you loved. And have it handy. We live in this, what do you call it, like consumerism lifestyle. So we definitely have those things. And if we have those little things, or, the smell of, what is it, like the mint or the spearmint, very calming, but is it calming for you? Sometimes I walk in a coffee shop and the smell is like calming to me. Sometimes I walk to a bakery and the smell is calming to me. What is calming to you? Find that one. If you have time, go to the nature when you are triggered. Trees, ocean, water, animals, your plants, your indoor plants, your outdoor plants, they do amazing things to calm us down. If you don't have time, watch a 1-minute video of lions in the Sahara or elephants in the Sahara or something that calms you down. But nature does amazing things to us. But the first time, the second time, the third time, you might not feel it. Keep doing it, and then it comes out. It's hidden inside, and then you start sensing it. Pay attention to your body when you are doing any of these. Music, of course, or sounds. There are sound baths now, like with these whole bowls. There are different types, like there are days that a calming piano music can calm me down, and there are days that exact same thing doesn't work for me and I have to look for something else. But make sure that the sounds or you use and practice with different sounds to see which ones are calming to you at the moment. Don't be hard on yourself. It's a learning process and it's constantly changing. If you can have a little place in your home that calms you down, whatever the colors are, whatever the view is, especially the view is very important. Like if you can look out like far away, it usually it brings the message to your brain that life is bigger and it calms you down. So there are so many different things in the environment that we can play with. And just remember that they can all change with time. There are different times you need different things. But try to bring them, try to make an environment that you have these things and you can use them to calm yourself down. And this is not to forget the problem. This is just to calm your nerve system down, to connect the nerve system, to bring a good connection between the nerve system and the prefrontal cortex, and then respond to what the trigger was. And sometimes we have a little time, sometimes we have a lot of time. So it's important to have these things as a daily practice. We don't have to be triggered to do any of this. We can actually just have a daily routine of calming and grounding ourselves down. And then when we are triggered, we are readier. And then the last thing is the relations. Relation is with ourselves and with others. It's so important to have self-compassion for yourself. We have so many contradicting beliefs. We have so many contradicting thoughts based on the circumstances, based on the situation, based on the old beliefs. So each part of us can think differently. Make sure that you notice if you are in fight with yourself. We do have a workshop coming up for all these self-talks and the inner judges that we have and how we notice them, what we do with them. But make sure that like these inner fights don't take you away from the present moment, from being grounded. They can be in so many different ways. The self-talks, the self-criticism especially, it can be I'm bad, or it can be she's bad, or it can be it's his fault. So make sure that these ruminating thoughts are in a way under control, under your management, before you kind of like react to a trigger. And then the relationship with others, if it's a long relationship, depends on the relationship. You know, it's like a romantic relationship, a partnership, a parents-children relationship, friends relationship, siblings. But look at the long term and notice if at the moment something is out of balance, how has it been over time? Was it always more on your shoulder, less on the other one, or the other way around? Or has it been moments of reciprocation? Remember those moments of reciprocation. Remember nice moments of the relationship. It doesn't mean that you want to forget the current moment that triggered you, but when you remember the bigger portion of the relationship, you will be more fair to yourself and to the other person. And then it's also a relation that, like the way that we relate to others with our body. We talked about it, but it's just like a little bit of reminder here, how we look at other people, what's the tone of voice that we have, what's our body gesture, am I just like doing like this and looking like this, or am I kind of like trying to be calm and say something, or am I trying to be actually assertive and saying something? We make sure that but the message that we want to convey is actually aligned with our body gesture. It can be an angry voice, but it doesn't have to be violation or mean violent. Angry voices are not necessarily violent. You can be angry at someone, but you can also love that person. So you can express your anger through the tone of your voice, but it doesn't have to be shaming. It doesn't have to be humiliating or violence in any different way. So our body language is very, very important. Overall, this is how we connect with other people, how we relate with other people, and how other people relate to us. So it's also important, not only the other person's, not only my way of looking or my tone of voice or my body language, you want to also pay attention to the other person. You may actually see a different thing in their eyes. You may see that they are not present, they are absent, and that might be something related not to you, to another event. And maybe at the moment you can say, is everything okay? Rather than, like we lash out sometimes, but before we even know that this other person is dealing with another thing. Those are always good assumptions to have. And when you look at the body language, the eyes, the tone of voice, you read a lot in other people. And then we can go from there to be curious rather than to judge that this person just wanted to do this to me, to be curious rather than taking it personally. And we won't lose. I promise we won't lose. We usually gain a lot more. So this is basically all these different practices is to ground us, to connect us, to help us to use our problem-solving skills, to develop our problem-solving skills in a way that we can connect with others and we can connect with life in a deeper way, bring more meaning, more purpose to our life, and enjoy our life better. Life is not always rosy and candy and happiness, but when the trigger comes, if we have those kind of like practices, we are ready to respond with wisdom, with maturity, rather than react out of immaturity. That's basically it. But it's good to know that a lot of it is biological. And when it is biological, we can learn how to manage it. This was just, like I said, a scratch on the surface, but I will be happy to answer any questions. There are a few more practices here. If you like to do like kind of like a daily practice to ground yourself, You can start your day, you can end your day, you can start and end your day, you can do it in the middle of the day, but it's better if you do it at the same time. But I think I have a daily checking in a few times. There is actually, like, I have a little check-in card. It's my business card actually, but I will copy it at the end of the slides before Adrian send them out, to help you to kind of like check in with yourself. And if you feel triggered, calm yourself down with all these different tools that we talked about. But that daily ritual, it really helps to be more resilient and be stronger towards the constant shakes and stressors of the environment. We live in a tough world. This is all my information. Shabnam Curtis, actually this is .net. If you go to .com, it takes you to .net. That's no problem, but I will change it. But my email is also easy, shabnamcurtis@gmail.com. I will be happy if there are any questions to answer. Please feel free to contact me. If there are any question, any thoughts that you would like to share at this moment.
I have a couple of questions. Oops.
Please.
Oh, I think I disappeared. I don't see. Oh, here we go. Sorry.
I just stopped sharing.
Okay. Thank you. First of all, thank you so much. This was really wonderful. And I liked what you said at the end. There were some things that I hadn't done in a while. And my room where I do all the Zooming and all that stuff, it actually faces my backyard, and it's very green right now because it's been raining a lot in Los Angeles, in California. And but I usually have an artificial light on. I don't always open the window. And this morning I opened the window, and it's really nice to have real light. And I also have a chair there. And I thought, I set it up so that I could, between classes and things, I could sit there, but I rarely do it. I also have a rosemary bush, and a long time ago, like a year ago, I had cut some sprigs and I would smell it. I didn't do any of that. I don't do that anymore. And today while you were talking, I was beginning to feel a little stressed, not from your talk, but just because it's been a long day. So I put some lavender cream on while you were talking, and I put some strawberry gloss on, and that really calmed me down. So I liked your tips. They're all really wonderful things. And sometimes we ebb and flow in our positive behaviors. Sometimes, I felt like, oh my gosh, I'm doing so much. So this was a nice reminder of some great things and an introduction to other things. Thank you so much. I do have a quick question. You mentioned a couple of classes. Are these classes already on the schedule? Are they going to be virtual, or are they going to be in person? Because I live in California, so I could only attend the virtual ones.
They are all virtual.
Okay.
And I think they have a few of them are already scheduled. Adrian.
Oh.
Yeah, all the ones that we talked about are already scheduled, and I think all the
I'll look
registration is
again.
already like once a month for the next few months at least. I forget how many there are in total. We'll be having a health literacy session with Shabnam. The next one is on March 27th, and it's about emotional awareness.
Oh, fabulous.
And I'll send out a link to the registration when I send out the slides.
Oh, okay. Thank you so much to both of you. I love libraries. I'm retired from a library. I used to work in a library. And I think now libraries are almost like community centers. And we really reflect in order for us to stay alive. Libraries with the digital stuff, we need to reflect our community. We need to provide them with services like this. So I love that all these libraries still offer those things, and that they're offering them virtually. Some of them, not everything.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
We can do it.
Well, thank you. Thanks for your contribution. Thanks for joining us, everyone. Thank you for joining us. I really appreciate it. And anything that we talked tonight, please don't make it like that. Like, if I cannot ground myself, then I'm a bad person. Life is hard, and we just need to practice more and more and more. And the more we practice, the more resilient we become, but at the same time, there are moments that we really go to fight, flight, and freeze, and we have to stay until we process it. It's not like this to kind of like go back to the connection. There are many strong triggers that shakes us pretty hard, and allow yourself to be you, and just try to practice to kind of like take care of yourself. That's the whole thing, to take care of yourself. Thank you.
Thank you.
Right. Thank you, Shabnam. Thanks everybody for coming. Hope to see you next month for the emotional awareness program. All
Thanks,
right, and I'll send out
Adriana.
those slides as soon as I can.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.